you like to be called Bill?
Bill's fine.
Bill's fine. All right. I've got my Harley Davidson cup here too.
Okay. Where are you physically right now?
Physically, I'm in Chico, California, which is about 2 hours above Sacramento.
Okay.
And I used to live down in San Diego area, but got too crowded for me.
Okay.
All right, Bill. Listen, I really appreciate you taking out the time to do this.
Happy to.
Yeah, our first issue of next year, 2012, we want to come out with an issue just really promoting what's going on and the positive influence that we can all be as individuals. So
fantastic. Yeah. In addition to the Golden Motorcycle Gang book, I've been asked to host 2 webinars, 2012 A New Beginning. They'll be January 12th and February 2nd from Hay House, and we haven't finalized exactly who's going to be on, but I can give you sort of the range.
Yeah, well, let me know and I'll make sure it gets in the magazine. And
great.
So, you know, this subject is, it's more than just it's more than just a magazine mission or anything else. It's been a personal thing of mine to try to discover, like, who are we and what are we doing. I remember there's a researcher named Tipler, and they call it the omega point of consciousness. In other words, consciousness is out to evolve, and the ultimate point is for the whole universe to become conscious and self-aware of itself.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you think we're at on this conscious evolutionary journey?
We're at a bifurcation point where it can accelerate rapidly or go backwards and make everyone start over.
This is what we're calling either the breakdown or the breakthrough.
Right, very much along the lines of Irvin Laszlo, what he first spoke about in the macro shift and is now spoken about in Chaos Point 2012. I, of course, am an optimist, and I'm looking at all the positive signs, and there are many of them on many different levels. And the most important is that what you've called the omega point is actually being proven by hard science to exist. If you actually look at the nature of quantum physics and string theory, there is definite directionality to evolution towards greater complexity, greater beauty, if you will, in terms of patterns. And Dr. Laszlo actually has a brand new book called Science and the Akashic Paradigm, which further shows that these principles actually line up with human behavior principles such as morality and freedom. So I think that the idea of the universe becoming consciously aware of itself and each element becoming more consciously aware of its role is a reality. And I'm writing books like the 12 and the Golden Motorcycle Gang to bring this message to as many people as possible, because I think that human beings themselves play a critical role in what's going to evolve over the next, not just year, but the next 50 years.
Yeah, and if you stop and think about it, even rationally, if the universal mind, the universal consciousness is actually what pervades all existence and what animates us, for us to cling to, hold on to safety and non-change is actually spiritual stagnation. And I think the more I personally get in touch with this feeling, this energy, the more I would live what I used to call dangerously. In other words, without a safety net, and going into this mystery with an adventurous spirit instead of so much apprehension and fear. And as this consciousness arises in me personally, my life has changed dramatically, because I find myself clinging to the things that I used to identify with. And the more I let go of that, the more freedom I feel. Does that make sense to you?
Absolutely. There's a level in which we could say resistance to change is clinging to death. I mean,
yeah.
Change is the nature of life. Everything is constantly moving and changing, whether it's your breath, or biological systems internally, and it's true at every level. And consciousness itself is constantly arising and changing. There is no sort of universal, I've got it all point, because consciousness itself, including even our connection to eternity, changes. Everything coexists in a single moment. This is true. So from that very deep level of reality, nothing changes. But the manifestation, which all happens at a level, one level removed, if not more, from that deep level reality, is in constant flux. And the sooner people accept this and embrace it with joy, it is what gives meaning to life. Our definition of death is frankly a human definition of death. It's no reality other than that which we give. We make an arbitrary definition between animate and inanimate. That too, of what we describe as life, is not universal. It's our human conception of it. Having had, when I was very young, a near-death experience where I left my body and sort of entered the, not the twilight zone so much, but the bliss zone is what I would call it, you become aware that everything is connected and that everything is alive. Everything breathes at a certain level. Of course, you know, human beings are a much more complex form of life than, you know, a piece of wood that has been removed from the tree, or even a piece of plastic, which still has a certain consciousness to it. And once you have that realization, I think this is one of the things that happened during the 60s when people have their drug experiences, the positive ones at least, they became aware of this deeper level of reality. Of course, there was no structure to it then, and it was a randomness that people couldn't really build on in a scientific way. But some of those insights, and the reason we had such incredible music, I think, in the 60s and creativity, was that people were tapping into this universal reality that undermines and grounds everything that we do in our existence. So I'm in complete agreement with you, and you know, I feel that this is probably the most exciting time for human beings, at least in the last 26,000 years. Based on all of my research, we're coming to the end of a 26,000 year cycle. This is a real cycle. We can observe it in the rotation and the wobble of the Earth. It's called precession. How the Mayans knew about that and calculated their calendar to coincide with that is something we may never understand. But every culture I've studied, every major culture, has a belief that life is about cycles, and that a major cycle is ending more or less at this time, and that the cycle that is ending is a heavier, denser cycle than the cycle that will be beginning now. And my personal view is that the new cycle has already begun. The December 21st, 2012 date is a very important date. Even more important is December 22nd, 2012, because that's the beginning of the new cycle. But as with any cycle, there's not this sharp, non-linear break between one moment and the next. Not that you're going to wake up and everything's going to be different. It's a transition, and as a transition, of course, it's already started right now.
Right. You know, and I think we're at the part of this cycle. It seems to me that when we were in our golden age before, possibly 12, 13,000 years ago, the beings that lived on the planet and the beings that we were in touch with, whoever they were, which gets into controversy, I'm sure, but it seems like they were pointing at this time, even building monuments, calendars, to tell us that this is a very important time. And it seems like it started maybe around the Renaissance period. We started waking up from the Dark Ages, and now we're going through some of this mechanistic view of our world, and now we're into this other change that it does seem like it's, I hate to use just a simplistic word, real, but we're confronted in this world by so much nonsense and craziness that it's sometimes difficult for the guy that has a family with 4 kids and they're just paying bills and to wrap their minds around this. What do you think some of the signs are, and what can we do as individuals to be part of this?
This is exactly the reason Jack Canfield and I wrote the Golden Motorcycle Gang. Jack is an ordinary person. He was born into a dysfunctional family, alcoholic father, alcoholic mother, very